I am Clementina Barbaro, the head of the Youth Policy Division, and I'm very pleased to be here with you to present the Council of Europe Reference Framework on a Youth Perspective. So let's begin, first of all, let's begin with a bit of background. And where does this document come from? And it comes from a long history of empowerment of young people and engaging them in the Council of Europe values, human rights, rule of law, and democracy. This is the core mission of the Council of Europe youth sector. And for over 50 years, the Council of Europe has really supported young people's participation through its policy and its instruments. So you have perhaps already heard of the Council of Europe co-management or the Council of Europe Youth Centers and the European Youth Foundation. So now the notion of youth perspective, the term of youth perspective, was mentioned for the first time during the Reykjavik summit of the Council of Europe in May 2023, where heads of state and government called for the first time for a new path of increased transparency and cooperation for the organization, which includes a youth perspective in the organization's intergovernmental and other deliberation. So that was the first time where youth perspective was mentioned, and the heads of state and government also noted that youth participation in decision-making processes improves the effectiveness of public policies and strengthens democratic institutions through open dialogue. So after May 2023, 2 years passed, and in October 2025, the Council of Europe Reference Framework on the Youth Perspective was adopted at the 10th Council of Europe Conference of Ministers responsible for youth. And this document is a pure co-managed document. It means that it has been prepared by representatives of member states and representatives of European youth civil society organizations before being endorsed by the ministry. So, why a youth perspective, first of all? The starting point was that youth face demographic, I would say, economic and social exclusion. They experience barriers to their participation, but also discrimination and difficulties in accessing their rights. And we know that sometimes young people's turnout in elections can be very low, and this creates a very vicious circle in terms of representation in parliaments, as well as in having policies which really meet their needs. And so this creates a phenomenon of declining trust in democratic institutions. But having said that, we also notice positive trends. And it has always been a key element of Council of Europe youth policies to regard as youth as active agents of change, which means that young people have the rights, the skills, and the competencies to actively shape democratic society. And they are really powerful agents of change which can address societal challenges with creativity and determination. And actually, you see in the slide the reference to the new Democratic Pact for Europe, which is an important political initiative which is ongoing at the moment within the Council of Europe and its member states. And really, young people's contribution to improving the quality of our democracies is really regarded as key. And when the reference framework as really a vision, what do we want to achieve by integrating young people's perspectives? First of all, a better participatory democracy, which means that we really want young people to participate fully in our democratic processes, and thereby increasing also the relevance and resilience of policies across Europe. And also we want to have inclusive and future-proof policies that benefit present and also future generations. And now we come really to the key question. What is the reference framework? And you can read the answer here. It's really an approach, a very structured approach to policy making, which implies structural changes in the way policies are elaborated, adopted, adapted, implemented, and evaluated. Okay, so really the idea is to bring youth voices into all stages of policy processes, and not only for policies that are traditional youth policies, such as, I don't know, youth policy, youth participation, youth access to rights. The objective is really to bring youth voices in all the areas that concern them. So it can be education, employment, housing, and so on. And you will see this also later. The reference framework has been conceived as a very flexible tool that can adapt to each specific context in member states. And here you can see its 4 core elements. The first one, think with youth. This is really about the attitude, the mindset that recognizes young people as active contributors to policymaking. So think with youth means that you really need to value youth knowledge, that you have to counter stereotypes and promoting respect for young people's perspectives. You really also to carry out research to understand the ambitions and the experience of young people and open communication challenges with them. The second element is about the experience of learning from and with young people, which is really an interactive process, which implies strengthening mechanisms that allow young people participation, and also open dialogue and put in place participatory mechanism tools. The third element, participation, participate with young people, which is really about, again, it's about the skills that you need to have in order to interact meaningfully with young people. And this involves different set of skills. It involves capacity building, as well as using an accessible language and right communication skills. And finally, the fourth one, which is also very important, so act with it and for young people. Make sure that you include really young people's views and aspirations in the policy cycle at all levels. Create spaces for dialogue and meaningful youth participation. Allocate resources and ensure follow-up to youth perspectives. So it's, as I said, the reference framework has been conceived to be a very flexible and evolving toolbox. And the idea is really to test at which stage every member state is and what can be done to improve each and every step of each and every pillar of the framework. And it's very important to stress that in order for the framework really to be able to work out, it's really the starting point is to recognize young people as right holders and recognize fully their knowledge and skills and perspectives. And then the second important element is really to act. This is the fourth dimension of the framework, to put financial and human resources for effective cross-sectorial collaboration. Because as I said, the objective is really to work in different fields of policies. And that implies also that also other sectors need to be able to acquire the skills and competences I've referred to earlier. Here you can see also in this slide some of the principles which underpin the reference framework. So I will not read them all, but as I said, the multi-level action, the framework is really intended to be applied at all levels, from local to regional to national, and cross-sectorial approach, working together in different fields and in different sectors is very important. Then when you look at how concretely implement the different pillars of the framework, it was acknowledged that there are really 3 important phases which you need to go through. The first phase is the preparation, which implies a high-level political commitment to implement a youth perspective. And this implies, for instance, this also implies, of course, commitment from young people themselves to once the high-level political commitment has been confirmed. And then you need really to also to put in place all the mechanisms, the standards, the legislations, the governance mechanisms, which can then allow for youth participation and youth perspectives to be integrated. Then the second, so capacity building will also naturally come to play. Then you will have the second phase, design and implementation, where really the idea is really how to put the youth perspective into action. And this implies setting up sustainable participatory mechanism with young people, and also to carry out human rights-based impact assessment. So really you can see ex ante and ex post how policies are impacting young people. And finally, last but not least, a continuous process of monitoring and evaluation, it aimed to see to which extent youth perspectives have been integrated. So this document, as I said, was adopted in October by the heads of state and government. And now what comes next is that capacity building and support will be key, and the Council of Europe is actively engaged with its member states to try to support the implementation. We have discussed during our latest meeting with the youth statutory bodies how to support member states in integrating youth perspectives at national level, and we are considering the idea to have pilot projects in member states in order to be able to, to try really to test the framework in all its different components. And the same process is also happening within the Council of Europe, because this youth perspective is intended to be happening also within the different bodies and sectors of the Council of Europe. And we have already many positive examples in the organizations of committees or of high political bodies such as PACE, where youth perspectives have been integrating. So thank you very much for your attention. I'll stop now and I look forward to your questions later. Thank you.